I Hate the News is the weekly news bulletin from I Hate Politics podcast, a show about a human activity we love to hate. I'm Sunil Dasgupta. It's April 1st, 2025. Last week, Maryland House of Delegates passed its version of the 2026 budget amidst pushback from Republicans and some Democrats. And this week, the state Senate debates the budget. April 7th ends the annual session, by when the legislature must pass a budget law. We compare states all the time with respect to economic development and regulatory arbitrage, but sometimes there is no comparison. In neighboring Delaware, the state legislature pushed through a new law to try to restore the state's reputation as the preferred jurisdiction for incorporating companies. Also from Delaware, why Senator Stephanie Hansen is upset with Ocean City, Maryland, and more. Stay with us.
I Hate Politics is brought to you by UMBC's Political Science Program. If your goal is to make a meaningful impact with a career in local, state, or federal government, discover what this degree can do for you. Learn more at shadygrove.umbc.edu.
I Hate Politics is a podcast about our neighborhoods, workplaces, schools and streets, and our local governments as they function in diverse and democratic societies. This means our politics are messy, dirty, sometimes corrupt, with often self-serving politicians. But no matter how much we may hate politics, we are never exempt from it, even when we refuse to participate. In fact, the purpose of politics is to keep society moving precisely when we don't agree with each other. Like now. Music for this episode comes from Washington, D.C. area composer Anna Rubin, who used to teach music at UMBC. She has composed music across several genres, including orchestral, choral, electronica, and stage and video, including this piece, Second Nature, which was commissioned by the Baltimore Dance Project and choreographed by Doug Hamby. You can find her work at annarubinmusic.com. The Maryland General Assembly, in its last full week of the 2025 session, is debating the budget. Depending on who you talk to, the problem with the budget is either the federal government uncertainty and chaos, or the stubbornness of the Democratic majority in the legislature, especially with respect to taxing and spending more. We have covered budget details in depth in previous episodes, and we will have more once the session ends. Last week at the floor debate, House Minority Leader Jason Buckle, Republican from Allegheny County, had passionate words, but not the votes on the floor to force change.
I don't know if we know how things work here in Maryland. They seem to know how they work in Virginia. They seem to know how they work in Pennsylvania and Delaware and West Virginia, but we can't get it done here in Maryland. We're the smartest state, we're the best state, we're the greatest state, we're the only state in our damn region that has a multi-billion-dollar budget deficit and needs to raise billions of dollars in taxes to do the same stuff that they can do in Richmond. They have black and brown people in Richmond. I lived there. You're from there. They have them there. They're not getting up in the halls of Richmond and saying, we got to do this for them. They have black and brown people in West Virginia, in Delaware, in Pennsylvania. They're not saying we got to do this here. You know why we got to do this here in Maryland? Because we're a poorly run state. And I don't blame all of you. We're all complicit in it. The man upstairs has only been there for 2-3 years. I don't blame him for our economic failures of the last 10. We're all complicit in it. Don't tell me that we don't have enough money to put air conditioning and heating in Baltimore City schools. We spent $63 billion 2 years ago. We couldn't have put a couple million of that into a school system? Sure, we could have, but we chose to take it and give it to somebody else. Do I think the blueprint is great? I don't know. I think there's some parts of it that are good. There's some parts we can work on. But my sweet Jesus, we spend more money per pupil than most places in the United States. And where are our test scores? Where are our test scores? Anybody know? They ain't that good. They ain't that good. Let's quit fooling ourselves that we pay more money and we've got the best schools in the country, because we don't. And you took out some of the private schools, some of the Gilmans, some of the Georgetown preps, some of those places. You take some of those schools, some of the DeMathas, you take some of those schools, and what they do with private dollars out of our scores and our straight public school scores go terribly. That's a sin. I got to send my son to middle school and high school in a couple of years, and I'm terrified because the public schools where I live, far away from Baltimore City, it's not a Baltimore City problem. The public schools where I live, the academic performance has steadily stagnated or gone down. I have to make those decisions. Stop. Stop saying that the Medicaid cuts that we offered applied to 85-year-old women or poor people. The Medicaid cuts we offered, unless that individual you discussed was getting gender-affirming care or was an undocumented immigrant or was making $100,000 a year and providing for her children, that's all we cut. That's it. Not poor people. Not people getting base levels of care. We didn't eliminate the blueprint in our proposal. We said, take a pause. Because guess what, folks? You don't have the money. You didn't have the money 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, and you came in this year and you went, whoopsie. We don't have the money. And what's our solution? I don't know. I guess our solution is raise all the taxes. And we heard, well, the taxes are only going to go up on 6% of people. Do only 6% of Marylanders buy a car every year? Used car, new car, doesn't matter what kind of car you buy, you're going to be paying more taxes this year. Do only 6% of Marylanders buy something from a vending machine? I don't know. That's going to be going up too. Do only 6% of Marylanders and Maryland businesses purchase tech services? I want you to look. I don't know. Some of you actually look and read. It's right here for you. It's a sheet that the very good staff of the Ways and Means Committee, the Appropriations Committee, the Department of Legislative Services provide. You're all intelligent people. I'm proud to serve with all 140 of you. You're all certainly smart enough to read the sheet. What is the single biggest source of taxes that you're raising? It ain't on the rich people. It's $500 million this year, expected to go to $650 million on a tech tax that applies to everybody and every business. It's not limited to the millionaires. Your constituents are going to pay it too. Your small businesses are going to pay it. You're not here taxing the rich to give to the poor. That is a fallacy. That is a dream. That's how you guys want to view yourself. That's how you want to put it on Twitter. I wouldn't know how to put a Twitter tweet, whatever the hell out is. You put a gun to my head, I wouldn't know how to tweet. But everybody likes to tweet here. Everybody likes it. Because we're starting to think that we're Washington, D.C., and we're not, because we can't print our own money. We have to take it from somebody else.
The overwhelming Democratic majority has become accustomed to Minority Leader Buckles' passion. But when a Democratic legislator, Cherie Sample Hughes, from District 37A in Dorchester and Wycomico counties in Eastern Shore, there was pushback.
When I saw the former Governor Schaefer, saw his picture in the lounge, and this morning, again, it kept going over and over in my mind, back in 1991 when I was in 9th grade, and he made the statement that the Eastern Shore is the outhouse. And for some of you who are younger, you might not wonder what that is. It's called a shit house. And I stand here because I feel like I don't have a place in this place anymore. I don't. And it's for some of these very reasons in this budget. And I'm going to say this, the Appropriations Committee, you've done an awesome job. You've done your best. You've tried. But what I'm going to say is that it doesn't look like the area that I come from. It doesn't look like what the Eastern Shore is in need of. When we talk about the Rural Prosperity Fund, yes, you say, well, we level funded it. Well, we also cut close to $800,000 of that. And what that equates to is young children not being able to go to a summer program. What it looks like is that Dorchester County is cutting all their summer programs, and they're cutting staff. What it looks like is in Carroll County, another rural county, is cutting 90 people off of their staff. Those things are important. Those things are extremely important to our way of life. Just on the other day, we had a bill for Somerset County. That's not even your county, but you voted against it because it had the word tax in it. Well, it's because they need an ambulance. An ambulance. That's it, period. They don't have them. And it's frustrating to know that when I walked in the door back in 2015, my goal was, wow, to be here to do the people's work, to press the buttons for the people. Now I feel like I'm pressing a button just for anything and everything. And you know what? I'm not going to talk about the budget stuff anymore. And yes, I know that's what the purpose is. I get it. I know the rules of the party, but I will say this, is that institution is not for everybody.
Point of order.
This institution is not for everybody.
Point of order, Madam
We
Speaker.
I'm sure I'm going to be
Thank
retaliated
you for recognizing
against.
me, Madam
I'm going
Speaker.
to be
You are
removed
over
from something.
your 2 minutes that are allotted to explain your vote. Thank you.
Parliamentarian, I hear you. But enough is enough. When I have an 80-year-old woman call me and say she's
Madam
sitting there
Speaker.
with candles just to light her house.
Madam Speaker.
I'm trying to help
Thank you
her.
for recognizing me, Madam Speaker. The 2 minutes for the young lady are over.
I can count.
But you must sit down. You no longer have the floor.
The one last thing I will say, and I was not trying to be controversial,
Recognizing the parliamentarian.
Thank you, Madam
Is
Speaker.
that
People
this
are allotted 2
institution
minutes to
still needs
explain
to
their
be
vote.
for the
I
people.
can talk louder than you.
Period.
Do you want to do that? Sit down.
All you to do, let's keep calm.
Let the lady speak.
Did you had your
2 minutes is up.
Yes,
but the
it is
passion
up.
for the people continues. Thank you.
Shutting down Delegate Sample Hughes is House parliamentarian Stephanie Smith, Democrat from Baltimore City. In the end, the House voted on the primary budget bill 100 to 39. Along party lines, Delegate Sample Hughes voted with the Republicans. The Democrats lost more votes on the accompanying legislation called the Budget Reconciliation and Financing Act, for which 7 Democrats switched sides. The defection included most prominently Brian Crosby from St. Mary's County and Heather Bagnall from Anne Arundel. Crosby is the vice chair of the Economic Matters Committee and the senior-most Democrat to defect. Sherry Sample Hughes said she expected retaliation for not voting party line. Would that extend to Crosby as well? Maryland is looking to legislate a new way for local police departments to work with the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE. The old way in which the state's police departments worked with ICE stemmed from a 1996 federal law devolving authority to state and local police and used to be called 287G. 287G sought to identify and remove and possibly deport arrested, undocumented persons prior to them going to trial, thereby defeating due process itself. The new way would require local jail and prison officials to notify ICE before releasing an undocumented person convicted of a violent crime, felony, DUI, gang activity, or having an Interpol notice. That way, ICE could come pick them up. While we remain transfixed by Washington, D.C., and in the moment by the Annapolis budget debates, in neighboring Delaware, the state legislature passed a significant bill to try to restore confidence in its chancery courts, the extraordinarily influential corporate law division of the Delaware judiciary. It is an excellent example of how comparative advantage is built and kept. Delaware, a small state with little land and a small port, decided in 1899 to try to attract corporations to register themselves in the state and pass laws to bring that about. By 1913, with the progressive era in full swing, New Jersey, the hitherto collective home of American corporations, saw its politics under then-Governor Woodrow Wilson turn against corporations, and so companies discovered Delaware. Over time, Delaware's big selling point was that the state had no income tax, and corporations registering there did not have to pay taxes, which they would elsewhere. But since the 1910s, Delaware also developed a body of corporate law and practice relating to the internal governance of companies that judges and lawyers in other states and even around the world look to for guidance and precedent. More than half of all Fortune 500 companies are registered in Delaware, and corporate registrations are a major source of state revenue. There are more corporations resident in Delaware than there are people, admittedly a small population of 1 million. Delaware built an entirely separate court system to adjudicate corporate law cases called the Chancery Court. This 100-year preeminence was jeopardized by a few decisions made by the Chancery Court in the 2010s. The most controversial of them started in 2018 with Elon Musk's $55 billion compensation package from Tesla, which used to be incorporated in Delaware. Based on a lawsuit by a minority shareholder in Tesla, the Delaware Chancery Court rejected the gigantic compensation package, arguing that the Tesla board, which authorized Musk's compensation, had a conflict because Musk led the board. In a prior case, 5 years before 2018, the Chancery Court had established a doctrine where, in case of conflicts like this, minority shareholders would have to agree for a compensation package to move forward. That previous case and some changes in law were prompted by accusations that Delaware's corporate safe haven was leading to money laundering, things we associate with tax havens like Bermuda and Panama. Remember, the Delaware Chancery Court adjudicates disputes over the internal governance of companies. How much Elon Musk is paid by Tesla is an internal matter for the company. Chastised by the Chancery Court, Musk and Tesla went back and asked for and received the consent of the majority of other shareholders of the company. And then they came back to the Chancery Court. But the court refused once again, arguing that the sequence of how this conflict was to be resolved was not followed. Now Elon Musk got mad, and the Leave Delaware campaign was born. Musk moved Tesla, SpaceX, and Neuralink out of the state. Dropbox, the data company, has moved out. Mark Zuckerberg is thinking about it. Musk's mate, Bill Ackman, the hedge fund founder, is thinking about it. After 100 years, Delaware's position as a corporate registration capital of the world was in jeopardy. The state legislature and the governor, Matt Meyer, moved to fix the situation. There has been a lot of invective about how the state's Chancery Court had suddenly become an activist judiciary, but it is unclear what really changed. Chancery Court rules are written to exclude political interference, but the legislature and the governor can pass laws, and last week, finally, after several months of debate, Delaware passed a new law, which most importantly protects the interest of controlling shareholders. Controlling shareholders are people like Musk and Zuckerberg who incorporate, own significant shares, and run their companies. Worth keeping in mind that when a business person registers a company, they are the controlling shareholders, and their choice of registration destination depends on their understanding of where their own personal interests are best protected. The company may go on to become successful, have many shareholders. The founders may even lose majority shareholding. But that early registration decision is fully that of controlling shareholders, and it is controlling shareholders who needed to be persuaded to remain in Delaware. The new Delaware law will provide safe harbor to transactions involving controlling shareholders, such as Musk's compensation package, if it is approved by an independent board committee or ratified by a majority of shareholders other than the controlling shareholders. Second, it defines disinterested corporate directors as those outside the transaction in question and stops frivolous cases arguing to look at the company's accounting books using the possibility to delay and drag decisions. Also from Delaware, State Senator Stephanie Hansen is upset that Ocean City, Maryland, decided to spend $200,000 in public money to launch a political campaign in Sussex County, Delaware, just across the Maryland border and the peninsula, to stop the issuance of local permits to the region's first offshore wind project, which has been approved by the federal government. The project promoted by the company US Wind planned to have 4 cables from its offshore wind turbines come ashore under the beach near the Indian River Bay on the Delaware side. Here is Delaware State Senator Stephanie Hansen, chair of the Energy, Transportation, and Environment Committee.
People don't understand that we don't have the luxury to say no to big energy things. They're not getting that message somehow because you might not like the way offshore wind looks, which is dumb in my perspective, because if that's what you're worried about, you should be more worried about coming down to breakfast in the morning and not being able to turn your lights on. Your computer's not going to come on. All the refrigerators, they're worried about, in the restaurants, it's going to hurt tourism. No, it's not, number one. It's been shown that it's not. Everybody's going to have emergency generators and then the price of oil is going to go up for your emergency generator. I mean, they don't realize that this is for real. And so that's why stuff like this kind of baloney that Wicomico County and Ocean City town councils in hosting a stalking horse misinformation campaign to get to Sussex County Council just really burns me up, because we have worked so hard in Delaware over the last, it's been, how many years now has it been? I think it's been at least 4 years or so, getting ready to bring offshore wind. And it was just about here. And then, they jump in with this campaign, rather than spending it on the things that I think the town constituents might want or the county constituents might want. Aren't there other issues you'd rather be working on? Offshore wind from this particular project was going to bring in about 2 gigawatts of energy. We need 9 in order to stabilize our grid so that we don't fall off this cliff in what I thought was 3 years, but might only be a year from now. Well, what do we think we're going to do? Maybe, I got it. Let's do small modular reactors. That'll be a lot easier to site, right? Right? Or big transmission lines. Even if you want to do natural gas, it's going to take 4 to 7 years to manufacture a new gas turbine for a new natural gas facility. It's not like you can go into a store and buy a gas turbine off the shelf. All of these shovel-ready things that we need to be doing with utility scale solar, community solar, wind, all of that stuff that's at our doorstep, we need to be doing like yesterday. And to have outside meddlers, I think it would have been different if the town council people from Ocean City and the Wicomico County folks thought, well, you know what? We don't want to see offshore wind. And here's all the reasons why we think it's bad. And we want to let Sussex County Council, who's making this decision for their constituents, know that we don't like this idea. So we're going to put together a thoughtful letter to them with exhibits saying, we don't like it. Here's why we don't like it. Here's what we've done as a government to do that. You know how much that would have cost them? 0. Except for their time to put together this information and to send it over to their contemporaries over in Sussex County Council. Instead, what they decided to do was to spend $200,000 on a lobbying effort to stand up a website that was aimed specifically at people in Sussex County, said, here's your county council person. Tell them you don't like offshore wind. It's going to kill the whales. It's going to hurt tourism. It's going to cause your property values to go down, all of which have been thoroughly debunked. And nowhere do you know that this is being funded. This is a publicly funded campaign by the government next door to do exactly opposite of what the elected government in the state of Delaware has been doing since 2021 or so now. We've passed 2 bills in the General Assembly promoting offshore wind.
Does the state of Delaware have the right of preemption when it comes to citing utility projects?
I have a bill that I'm working on right now that would form a siting commission.
The siting commission is a long-term plan. Do you also have a bill that pushes the Sussex County project through?
We are assessing that situation now and counting the votes. We know that if we do that, there are going to be a lot of people that are upset in the local government sphere.
Have you thought of going to the Ocean City Town Council or the Worcester County Council meetings, or Wycomico for that matter, and, setting them straight?
I have sent emails to them.
But have you thought of going there in person and just like laying it out?
No, I have not. My life insurance policy isn't that high. Can you imagine the number of people that would come out with pitchforks and torches for a Delaware legislator coming in to school the Ocean City Council or Wycomico County Council? I'm going to walk in there. I had to have a bulletproof vest and a getaway car.
I would drive down to Ocean City just to see that.
Yeah. People would probably sell tickets to see that.
Senator Hansen, thank you for explaining the interstate commerce problem. In Prince George's County, a new generation takes power. Councilmember Ed Burrows III assumes the county council presidency following Jolene Ivey. Burrows is 33 and a UMBC political science graduate, a lawyer, and a council member, and now president. The county's district attorney, Aisha Braveboy, just won the primary to be county executive and likely to prevail in the general elections. The White House has said that the D.C. Air National Guard fighter jets that were supposed to be moved to Maryland as part of a deal whereby the state delegation to the U.S. Congress supported the bill to allow the rebuilding of the RFK Stadium for the Washington Commanders. Well, that's now dead. That's all for this episode. Be sure to check out our feature interview series that comes out Friday mornings. I Hate Politics is produced by me, Sunil Dasgupta, with support from the University of Maryland, Baltimore County. I direct UMBC's political science program at the universities at Shady Grove in Montgomery County, where, among other things, we explore and learn about politics, government, and society close to home. Music for this episode comes from Washington, D.C. area composer Anna Rubin, who used to teach music at UMBC. The piece from which we have excerpted music for this episode is called Second Nature and was commissioned by the Baltimore Dance Project. You can find her work at annarubinmusic.com. If you want to share your music on this show or know someone else who might want to, please email us at producer@ihppod.org. I hope you'll subscribe and share the podcast as we bring you stories about politics close to you and to your home. See you next time.